We say often that people who are neurotypical, they have this ability to read our minds. Well, it's called intuition. It's not literally mind reading, but they watch the behaviors of other people, facial expressions, innuendos, the way that people say things and how they say them. And that is a form of communication that they understand that those of us with Asperger syndrome, with autism, we just don't pick up on. Where do they get that? I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But guess what? That sixth sense, that ability to read people's minds, that intuition, sometimes it breaks down. Now, what is interesting is it breaks down when they are trying to read people with Asperger syndrome, people with autism. And that gets people with autism in trouble with neurotypical people because these neurotypicals who are so good at reading other people's minds, they're so good with intuition, they just totally blow it when it comes with us. It's kind of like the roles are reversed. Number one is this: they will see our detachment and they will misunderstand that as being narcissism or arrogance, or they will say that we seem to be aloof. We live in our own little world. I don't know how many times throughout my life I've been called a loner. I didn't want to be alone. It just nobody would have anything to do with me, and people would criticize me. They would isolate you, and then they would, or isolate me, I should say, and then they would criticize me for being isolated. What's wrong with this guy? He's all by himself all the time. Well, we don't want to have anything to do with him. Why not? Well, because he's by himself all the time. But they see that detachment, they see that avoidance, and they say, this person apparently thinks he is better than us because he or she will not have anything to do with us. When in reality, it's not that we don't want to, it's that we can't. We're not narcissists. Now, I suppose it's possible for a person to be narcissistic or to be arrogant or to be aloof and have autism at the same time. I mean, they could both exist at the same time. But the problem with neurotypicals is they tend to misread it every time. I mean, every single time. You would be amazed at some of the things that I had to go through. Not so much as a child sometimes, sometimes more so in high school. Now, in high school, my problem was not so much with the other students. And I know that that's contrary to what other people with Asperger syndrome will say. They would say, high school was very challenging for me. And I understand that, except that I went to a very large high school. It's more like a college campus. I think we had, 5,000 students matriculated at one time. So you just kind of got lost in the crowd. Sometimes the crowd could be so big that it's not a crowd. Social pressure is gone. Well, that's the kind of high school I went to. And I didn't really sense that social pressure because we didn't have those close-knit groups. But a lot of times the teachers, the instructors, the coaches, whatever, they are the ones who were being observant. And they're the ones who would, well, for example, I had one instructor who called me aside and said, why are you so quiet? Why don't you ever talk? Why don't you say anything? Why don't you socialize? He didn't use all those terms, but that was his point. And I tried to explain it to him, and he said, oh, I see, you just don't want to get in trouble. He just dismissive, Well, he didn't. He didn't accuse me of being narcissistic or being aloof or being arrogant, but he still was dismissive. And, I've had those experiences, similar experiences with teachers multiple times, particularly in high school. And sometimes in college, which is another story. To be honest with you, I never should have gone to college, but I did anyhow. Number two is they will confuse mind blindness with a lack of empathy. So that's what we just touched on. Remember, people with Asperger syndrome, people with autism, we don't hear that language. It's not that we don't understand it. We don't even hear it. That language of, that behavioral language, I observed that when I was in kindergarten. And all these kids, I think there were 30, 31 in our class. And they just played together. How do they know how to do that? Who taught them this is how you play together? And first grade, they did the same thing. And throughout my entire life, people, I noticed, know how to play together. They know how to fight. They know how to interact socially. They know how, where did they learn how to do that? No one taught me. So I was just kind of there observing. That's mind blindness. Well, people will see that. People being neurotypicals, they will see that, and they get you into trouble because they think you just lack empathy. They think you don't care about people. Now, keep in mind there are two different kinds of empathy. Actually, there are many kinds of empathy, but primarily there is effective empathy. Think of affection. And then there is cognitive empathy, and that's the type of empathy that we're typically talking about when we're talking about people with neurotypical syndrome, if I can make up a term. They have that cognitive empathy where they can pick up on that language that us normal Aspies can't hear, let alone understand. But they're very proficient at it. That is cognitive empathy. But they see our lack of cognitive empathy, and they say that we don't have effective empathy because they don't distinguish the two sometimes. Effective empathy, again, just simply means being affectionate. And it's not that we don't care, that we don't have affection, we just don't know how to express it. I'm not the type of guy to walk up to somebody, give them a big hug. Sometimes I do. Well, to my wife, but, not normally. I'm just not a real friendly guy, and it's not because I don't care about people. It's because I'm mind blind. I don't get it. I didn't get it in kindergarten. I didn't get it in college. I didn't get it as a young adult. I didn't get it now as an older adult, middle-aged adult. I'm pushing 70 years old over my lifespan, these decades. I've learned a lot of things, and one of the things that I've learned is I don't get it. And I never will get it because that's the way that my mind is formulated. Probably something to do with the amygdala. It's just not there, part of your brain. It's just not there. It's kind of like somebody who was born without eyeballs. They just can't see, or born without the ability to hear. They just can't. It's not because they don't care, right? It's not because they don't want to look or they don't want to listen, don't want to pay attention. They just can't. Okay, number 3 is what gets us in trouble is we tend to be easily bored. When I was doing my video on narcissism earlier today, I used my granddaughter's husky as an example. I thought it was a good example because my granddaughter's husky is the busiest dog in existence, other than other huskies and maybe Mexican chihuahuas. But that dog, it can't hold still because it just can't. I mean, that's the way these things are bred. I mean, their job is to pull sleds around Alaska or wherever they do it. That's what they're bred to do. They're bred to be hyperactive. They can't not be hyperactive. They are easily bored. Put them in a room by themselves. They will get out of that room if they gotta chew a hole through the wall. I mean, somehow, some way, they're going to be busy. But what happens is people with Asperger syndrome, if we don't stay busy, we get bored. And people say, well, that's laziness or that's antisocial behavior. Now, one of the things that I do is I like to walk. I like to stay busy. I will go out and walk for an hour a day if I can. Right now, I can't do it because of physical complications, but I like to go out and walk. I just like to stay busy. I like to do things. And if I can't stay occupied, I get easily bored. And so if I'm not intrigued by what I'm doing, I don't do it. And people see that and they say, hey, you're just lazy. You lack character. I had a real problem with this when I was in school. One of the reasons I should not have gone to college is because I would get so bored with schoolwork, and I love to learn. I'm autodidactic. I like to teach myself. But this thing about classroom where you have to sit there and listen to somebody drone on for like 40 minutes to an hour, you get bored. You're bored sick. Can't pay attention. I try to take notes. And the teacher would yell at you, what are you doing? Why don't you pay attention? Well, it's what I'm doing. But, so You wind up daydreaming, staring off to space, and the neurotypical person who is supposed to be very good at reading other people's minds, they don't read my mind. They don't read the person with Asperger syndrome's mind. They get it wrong. They think you're lazy. That you lack character. I had a problem throughout my high school and college career, if you want to call them careers, with instructors, teachers misunderstanding that I just wasn't engaged in what was going on. I wasn't being lazy. I just bored to death. You know. Number 4 is this: meltdowns. People with Asperger syndrome tend to have meltdowns. People with autism tend to have meltdowns. Neurotypical people, they're supposed to be able to read our minds, right? But they don't. They see our meltdowns and they think we're being temperamental. They think, well, this guy needs to be punished. He's misbehaving. Or this girl needs to be restrained. I mean, there have been occasions where little kids in elementary school were acting out. I don't know if they were Aspies or not, but the teachers had to call the police. I mean, they were that bad. And the cops had to put these people, little kids, 5, 6 years old, put them in restraints, had to put handcuffs on them. What else could they do? I mean, the little kid was tearing things apart. For their own protection, they had to do that. That's an extreme example, all right? But, we have meltdowns, and people don't understand that. They think, okay, you got a problem. Yeah, I do have a problem. I've got Asperger syndrome, and sometimes the frustration builds up, and out it comes. It's expressed sometimes emotionally. So you have this little fit. I don't do that as much as I used to. But I got to tell you, I got to be very careful when I'm out and about, because sometimes, particularly go to airport, I talked about that a month or so ago. You go to an airport and you have a meltdown. If you want to know where the security are, you'll find them real quick. They're all around you. The guys in the black uniforms. Sometimes the police, they'll be following you around the whole time you're there. What? They're misreading you. They don't understand. I mean, how could they possibly understand that? Well, I don't know. But I know they're neurotypicals. I know they're good at mind reading. I know they're good at intuition. But it seems they're good at it until it comes to us, people with autism, people with Asperger syndrome. Why is that? That's the way that nature made us. It's the way that nature made them. It's not going to change, but we can educate ourselves and be aware of what's going on. Do you see those 2 rectangles on the screen? If you want to keep our conversation going, hey, just click on one of those 2 rectangles and we keep talking together. But if not, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see y'all next time.